What's going on, guys? Welcome back to 3D Arcade. It's been a while. If you haven't seen me, I haven't seen you. It's good to see you. This is take 2 already. Haven't made a video in a long time. Spoiler alert, I've actually recorded week 1 as of recording this draft analysis, so I did make that, but I haven't made a lot else. I just went down a little bit of a rabbit hole right before starting this video, and am not feeling good and bad about content creation. So we're here. I'm glad to see you guys. I'm glad to play some Mons. We're going to have fun with it this season. That's my main goal. Me and my front office, shout out to Bennett Bandit, are jumping into Season 4 of the BBR with the goal of playing with some Mons I haven't played before, having a good time, and having fun. So, you know, maybe memory lane's not the best thing to go down, but we'll see how it goes. So as you guys can see, this season of BBR, we have split things into 2 draft pools. We had the Violet draft pool and the Scarlet draft pool, and we are doing our draft analysis all as one thing for the whole teams. So it's not going to be team by team or pick by pick. You can see all of our picks in pick order below me. You can also make sure to follow the BBR Pokemon League Twitter up above me, as well as all the description has the link to all the other coaches and everything going on down there as well. So we're going to jump right in, and I'm going to give you guys full disclosure. I did not intend to draft Dragapult. I did not think I was going to have a chance to draft Dragapult. We were pick number 8 of 9 in the Violet pool, which means we're almost a wheel, but we're almost last in round 1. And in BBR, I really felt like that meant that based on the tiering that Palafin or Meowscarada was going to fall to me. Well, spoiler alert for some other people, but Palafin went pretty dang fast, and Meowscarada stayed, but everyone else had a chance to play with Dragapult. And I've never had a chance to get Dragapult except for last season of the BBR where I had the first pick. And for those who don't know, that was my first draft league ever to actually draft my own team. I had played 2 other leagues, but I was a pickup coach, so I had a team when I came in, a little bit different. So that team had some holes and different things the way we wanted to fill, and I was also able this time to have the knowledge of how I like to play and what kind of mons are going to work for that as well. So, you know, I kind of took that into this draft and said, I am taking Dragapult. He's right here. He's super fast. I like playing hyper offense. This is a very hyper offense meta. Tera types can do a lot for dragon types and things like that. So we're taking him. So we got the the dragon ghost type Dragapult is the first pick for the Arkansas Pigknights. This man is immune to fighting, immune to normal, and he is weak to, I'm referencing my chart, Ice, Ghost, Dragon, Dark, and Fairy. So he has 5 weaknesses, 6 resistances, and 2 immunities. So that's 13. He has a special interaction with 13 out of the 18 types in the game, which is pretty nice. And in this case, I'll go ahead and tell you guys we are picking Tera captains. Pretty common in Draft League this season. A lot of them have started behind the scenes, but not a lot have been posted. I believe BBR is actually going to be the first one up. We're really hoping, so fingers crossed. Hope you guys enjoyed the season for that. Go ahead and give it a like and sub if you guys want to check all that out. And like I said, check the other coaches. Enough of a plug. Point being, Tera captains. What that means is not every Pokemon in Draft League can Tera type. You get in BBR 18 points to get your Tera captains, and they're equal to the points that the Mons are worth. In this case, we have selected Dragapult as our Tera captain. He's gotten the ghost type, and so that means his ghost type moves are going to be super powerful, basically double stab. I personally haven't seen any confirmation that it's exactly double stab, but that's how I'm treating it. You guys will see next week, but spoiler alert, the calcs also aren't super exact on whether it's double or not, but it's definitely a big wallop. Plus, while we do lose the defensive capabilities of the dragon type with that, we gain the offensive capabilities of Ghost, which is pretty freaking good, and we keep both of our immunities. So while we do remain weak to Ghost and Dark types, and I believe that's it. Yeah, that's it. We remain weak to Ghost and Dark, so we lose 3 weaknesses. And we keep some resistances. Admittedly, I'm not super good with the type chart off the top of my head, so I don't actually remember what Ghost resists. But it's a pretty solid type. Dragapult, as some of you may know, is a pseudo-legendary, which means he has a 600 base stat total. And he's going to be pretty freaking sweet. He can run special, he can run physical. His physical was really helped by the fact that he doesn't have to run Phantom Force. And even though he lost what was it called? Poltergeist. Now our Poltergeist is not dependent upon our opponent having an item, which means knockoffs are better for the rest of our team, which is also pretty hard to pull off since knockoff was taken away from a lot of Pokemon this gen. However, we have a couple of knockoff users, which is pretty great. We'll get to those. Point being, he has Tera Blast, so he has an 80 power move that is physical or special. He's already got Shadow Ball, that's an 80 power special move, but this is a really good option for our physical Ghost Stab. Dragon Darts or Draco Meteor, depending on what set we're running, a ton of coverage and U-turn, as well as setup moves like Substitute and Will-O-Wisp and Thunder Wave and things like that. Support and setup, I should say, not just setup. Dragon Dance, obviously, amazing threat on this Pokemon, super hard to catch. You scarf him, I don't think anything in this game can catch him, to my knowledge. Oh, I gotta sit up straight. I'm like watching myself as I'm talking to you guys, going, and the shoulders are, shoulders are hitting me. I'm gonna fix this chair up a little bit. So jumping on from that, obviously you got Fairy Dragon Steel Core. This is something that you really want to build on, and we only had to go through 2 picks before we got to pick our next Mon. And clearance of hazards and hazards in general, hard to get without getting hazards, hard to get without getting a bunch of ground weaknesses. So we've had to kind of be mindful of that as we've gone through the team. Ground is still an amazing offensive typing, and also steel is super good defensively, pairs very well with dragons. And so we decided to pick up Iron Treads. Iron Treads was sitting right there. He is a rocker and a rapid spinner, super fast at 106 base speed tier, which is, you know, a little bit of a gap for our Dragapult, but it's, I mean, isn't a lot of stuff a gap for our Dragapult? So this man right here has got 112 base attack, 120 defense, and 106 speed with a total base stat total of 570, decent HP, somewhat decent SPDF, and he's only got a few weaknesses. He's weak to fire, water, fighting, and ground. As you know, we're immune to fighting with Dragapult, and we resist fighting in water if we haven't done our Terastalize yet. So that's pairing pretty good. Right up front, we've got the ground, which Dragapult is neutral to. So we're probably going to be trying to clear that later, but we've also got access to Stealth Rocks on our boy, as well as Volt Switch, which is some interesting coverage if you think you're going to catch that incoming water type trying to get you. In addition, Knockoff is something this Pokemon has, which is amazing. An Ice Spinner, new coverage move as well. He's got a great move pool. He's got the Cork Drive ability. He's doing pretty freaking good stuff. He's got access to Booster Energy. I think he's a good Scarf candidate in some cases, and he just energizes really well with the team. Our next pick, we had to wait a long time for something to come around, and there's not, in my opinion, once you get through a lot of the high tier things, there's not a lot of water and fire types. There's just not. I want there to be more. But, you know, hey, it's a 400 region dex. Like I said, the first time I draft was BBR Season 3 that I got to pick my full team. And that was with the Crown Tundra dropping. So, keeping that in mind, I had a lot more Pokemon available to me at that time. And this was a little bit of a difference. So, my front office came to me and he said, you know you don't really like him, but Azumarill. Freaking Azumarill. Thick, fat, huge power, Sap Sipper, Water Fairy. Water Fairy is a phenomenal type. You might even remember, I think it might have been pick 3 or pick 4. We got Primarina in the last BBR season. I really like Water Fairies. I really like being able to be add an extra level of resistance for fire types, resistance for ice types as well. So we're quad resistant if we run Thick Fat, or we can lose one of our weaknesses to grass with Sap Sipper, or we have a Belly Drum setup sweeper with huge power. Pretty good stuff. Aqua Jet, Play Rough. If anything, I would say Azumarill's weakness for the team is having a lack of fairy type moves with just really having Play Rough. But in general, Azumarill, great pick. Obviously, immunity to dragon covers a dragon weakness for the pre-terastalized Dragapult. We have a resistance to that dark type weakness for Dragapult, and a quad resistance if we're thick fat to that ice type weakness for Dragapult. And same statement, excuse me, I'm still getting over a cold. Same statement with Thick Fat. We have a quad resistance or regular resistance for the fire type weakness of Iron Treads. So we have a lot of excellent stuff going on here. We do have an electric weakness that we cannot cover with an ability, but we do have a ground type Steel type. So that's really helpful in terms of having Iron Treads. That's synergizing really well. And we also have Wild Grass is neutral because he's a Steel type. We do have a resistance or an immunity, not a resistance, sorry, an immunity with Sap Sipper if we need it, if we go up against a strong grass type for the Iron Treads. In general, Azumarill, 420 base stat total, up to a 470 base stat total if you're running huge power. Could be underwhelming, a little middle table, but it is middle table points, so you have to keep that in mind. It does have Ice Spinner as a new ice move, leveling up just from Ice Punch by a few base power points. In addition, like I said, it's got Belly Drum and Aqua Jet, which can just tear through some teams if they don't have a good answer for some water. And with 100 HP, 80 defense, and 80 SPDF, this Pokemon can get pretty chunky in terms of helping out that Fairy Steel Dragon core. That said, he does have a 50 base speed, so you can see our speed tiers are kind of all over the place, and speed tiers are something that I've tried to become more cognizant of as I've drafted more teams, so we're going to be working on that as we fill out the squad. Starting up with 4th pick, we're taking Lucario. That's filling in a little bit of a gap. Lucario is at that 90 base speed tier, 525 base stat total, 70 HP, 110 attack, and 115 special attack. So what we liked about him is we did have 100 on 100 special attack on Dragapult, but we're kind of lacking in the special attack category at this point. And Lucario, Iron Treads is offensive enough, and he's got some good moves, but we like the idea of having Lucario as a second Steel, so it is some shared weaknesses that we can hopefully start covering here in a little bit. But he's a phenomenal fighting type to check those normal types for Dragapult, as well as a mixed potential attacker, which is something that we really liked. Unfortunately, Lucario doesn't have a lot of the super awesome support moves that we're looking for, but he is a mixed attacker and he has a good typing, or at least good enough typing for us to feel good about it. He also has the ability Justified, which allows him to synergize somewhat decently with Dragapult, because Dragapult has a dark type weakness. And while we are actually, I do believe, because we're fighting type, we are not only resistant to dark types, we can also get an attack boost, which means if we get the switch right, we can get an attack boost and be physical and start, reverse sweeping for some chances there. In general, his typing, he's going to be weak to fire, fighting, and ground. So those are all going to be shared weaknesses with our boy Iron Treads. But we are able to cover the fire with Azumarill. We're able to be immune to the fighting with Dragapult. And then ground is something we still have to answer, because now we have 2 ground weaknesses in 4 picks. We do get quad resistances to Bug and Rock, which is nice. So having a team that's not weak to Rock yet is really good, since Stealth Rocks was widely distributed this generation. Next up, 5th pick. I, full disclosure, had a different grass type in mind. Might make some transactions later, not totally sure, but at this point I've got 1 new Pokemon. They're pretty much all new to me, but I have 1 new Pokemon for what I really wanted to do in terms of kind of enjoying this generation, getting in on a draft league, forcing me to pay attention to what's going on with a lot of the Pokemon. So we picked up Wo-Chien. Wo-Chien is probably one of the weaker Forces of Ruin, I think is what they're called. I'm not actually sure what their group is called, but the 4 Dark-type Ruinous Pokemon in not Sword and Shield. Got to get used to that. Scarlet and Violet. He's Grass Dark-type, meaning he resists Ghost and Dark, so that is something that we wanted to bring in terms of... Let me make sure he actually resists Ghost and Dark, so I'm not an idiot. Yeah, he resists Ghost and Dark, which is good. For the Dragapult as well. He is quad weak to Bug, weak to Fire, Ice, Fighting, Poison, and Flying, and Fairy. He's got a lot of weaknesses, but he's a pretty thick boy. He's a 70 base speed tier, so he's kind of starting to fill in some of these gaps. Now we're looking at 50, 70, 90, 106, 143. So, I mean, there's still gaps in there, but they're playable gaps. He's also got some nice Subseed sets. He's a little bulkier. And given that I feel like there's sort of a lack of bulky water types, having a bulky grass type for the more offensive water types may work out for us. And that's kind of what my thought process was going into this. And also, dark types to be immune to psychic is also very, very good all the time. Next up, we're taking Arcanine. Arcanine is our fire type. Like I said, I don't feel like there's a lot of those in this generation. I mean, there's a decent amount, but I basically had a choice of 3 at this point in the draft. And as you can tell, we've got 2 kind of modes for our Fairy Dragon Steel Core, and obviously we picked up our Water and Grass, so I wanted to pick up a Fire. Picking up Arcanine gives us access to the Intimidate ability, which gives us access to lowering people's offensive stats, which can be really good in a hyper-offensive meta, with a mon that not only can attack well, but also eats hits to a certain degree, a little better than some other options could. He also has Flash Fire, making him immune to fire-type damage, which really helps out the Wo-Chien with all of the abilities he's got, especially if we're running Thick Fat Azu. I mean, we have an immunity and a quad resistance to fire for him, so that can really go a long way. It also helps with those Steel-type fire weaknesses when you're working around him. In addition, he's also got Justified, so if he's really here to back up the Dark types, make the Dark types back up on Dragapult, he can bring that as well. 555 base stat total, 95 base speed, also a mixed attacker. So we've gotten Wo-Chien, who's a little more special but can be physical, Lucario, who's pretty well balanced, and Arcanine, who's pretty well balanced and beefy but fast enough to really help out with that, hyper offense type thing, and some great Gen 1 coverage moves like Volt Tackle is what it's called. No, Wild Charge. Wild Charge for our big old water types coming in. He's got fighting type coverage, which is really good with close combat. He did lose access to teleport, which is really unfortunate. He does not have any pivot momentum anymore, but he still has recovery with Morning Sun. So he's got something going on for him, but nothing too crazy at this point. Next up, pick number 7, we've taken Kilowattrel, which has made my brother-in-law very, very happy. He picked this mon up super early in his playthrough of Scarlet and Violet and would not shut up about it. One amazing pro to this Pokemon, Volt Switch. That is, amazing U-turn, amazing Volt Turn potential, but he also has access to U-turn, so he can't be blocked just by those ground types. He can't, unfortunately, hit them very well with only his move pool being pretty limited to the flying and electric type stab, but he can U-turn out, which is just a tiny amount of chip. He also has wind power, which is helpful if he's able to get a good tailwind up and still be in front of something he wants to hit, as well as his hidden ability competitive, which allows him to, boost himself if he is not running one of those other abilities or thinks there's going to be some sort of stat lowering type of Pokemon coming to combat our pretty heavily offensive team. In addition, base speed here of 125, helping bridge that gap of 106 to 143. 142. Very helpful because there's not a lot of fast Pokemon in that tier. This is really one of the primary reasons we picked him, because outside of Weavile, I believe at this point, we didn't really have a good option of what could fit here. And we just, with Weavile losing access to some of his best moves, we didn't really feel comfortable going that way this generation. And the Volt Turn here is just awesome all on one Pokemon, especially to give that Tailwind potential to our already relatively fast offense. Obviously Dragapult doesn't really need it, but Iron Treads, our next pick Espathra, Lucario, lots of things can really help. And on the off chance that we're able to run a fast high hitting Azu with Belly Drum, we can get him in Belly Drum range under Tailwind. I mean, he could have 2 or 3, I don't remember exactly the count on Tailwind at the moment, 2 or 3 turns left after belly drumming to do some massive damage without having to just Aqua Jet everything. And I think that's it for Kilowattrel. He's also a special attacker. He can hit pretty freaking hard if he gets a good opportunity to run some choice specs. So that's pretty nice as well. And he has really good access to that thunder type, electric and flying type stab. Next up, we have picked up Espathra. Espathra was really just kind of sitting here, and I to be honest with you, I think I just wanted the Pokemon because I felt like he was in a good price range. He was only 10 points. We were doing pretty well. He's 105 speed, so he kind of, sits right next to Iron Treads. Doesn't really help out with the speed tiers, but he can get some good special attack, and his abilities are super fun. Frisk allows us to know our opponent's items. Opportunist allows us to counter his setup Pokemon by getting all of the stat boosts with him. And Speed Boost is just fun. If you run Speed Boost right, you can bridge the gap that we have between 125 and 142 with Dragapult and Kilowattrel. And it also gets access to Stored Power, and the Stored Power Calm Mind Speed Boost set just goes kind of nutty sometimes and is really, really, really enjoyable. In general, Espathra is a 481 base stat total Pokemon. He's not super amazing, but his abilities make him really, really, really fun. Lumina Crash to lower special attack is also a fun ability, so I'm hoping to have fun with him. Next up, we needed some more hazards for sure. More Volt Turning, U-turning capabilities, super awesome, and another Dark type that's maybe not weak to flying types, and also takes some dark types off the board so that they can't be used against Dragapult. Always fun. So we picked up Bombardier, who to me so far just seems to be like a downgraded version of Mandibuzz. He's flying dark type. He's got big pecs, which I believe Mandibuzz also has, and I don't think Mandibuzz gets Keen Eye, but that would be hilarious. In addition, he's got Rocky Payload, which basically allows him to get stab on his rock type move. So if we ever really need some rock type offense, that's an awesome option. And he bridges the speed gap between Wo-Chien and Lucario right there at the 82 speed tier with 485 as his base stat total. He's, a relatively cheap dark type, relatively budget, but he's got access to Stealth Rocks. He's got access to U-turn. He's got rock type moves, which is really interesting. He's got his flying type moves. He's got Tailwind. He's just got some stuff he can do. And I think I mentioned this already, but he's also got Stealth Rocks, which is fun because now we have 2 rockers. And at this point in our squad, we're looking like we got a couple of rock type weaknesses, but not too many. And the more rockers we take out of the hand of our opponents, the better. In addition, I want to look at him. He's got 103 base attack, which is not nothing. Our average attack stat on this final team is actually 90, which is pretty darn good for 11 Pokemon, in my opinion. I think we got some good value out of our budget picks. Speaking of good value out of the budget picks, next up, we picked up Wigglytuff. He's our second fairy type. He's also our normal type because you don't want ghost types going ham and getting set up and not being able to be stopped, especially when we have a Dragapult. And, ghost types can do a lot to him, and he's not getting rid of that ghost type weakness with his Tera type. He's actually just making it, if he can outspeed him, he can do some good stuff, but otherwise we might be in trouble. And, mind games. Anytime you want to click a ghost type move, you have to think twice if Wigglytuff's on the team. As well, Wigglytuff was only 1 point. Super good value from Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff, I believe, still has Baton Pass, but no longer has Teleport. Actually, I know it has Baton Pass, which means it's got some momentum type capabilities, but it's not, crazy anymore. Doesn't have that slow momentum unless you intentionally make it slow, so you got to be mindful of that. But we still got Wish access, so we can get some Cleric going on. We have also got a pretty fat HP stat for that Wish, which is pretty great, and a 3rd Stealth Rocker. That's a big thing. So a 1 point Stealth Wish Passer. Extra fairy type coverage is always appreciated, and a bulky normal type that we really needed. It's got 435 base stat total with 45 speed, so it's the new slowest Pokemon on our team. But he's got 85 special attack, which is, low but workable, and still has Gen 1 coverage, so that's always nice. Plus that 140 base HP, nothing to sneeze at. And then finally, I have 2 points left at this point. I have 2 points. I'm really struggling to make it count. We only have 1 Rapid Spinner, and so I pull up the list of Defoggers and Rapid Spinners, and who do I find but Lurantis in the 1 point tier. Lurantis lost access to Superpower, which is really unfortunate. It makes Contrary a little less of an attractive ability. However, it's still got Leaf Storm. It's still got decent offensive stats at 105 attack, 80 Spatak. Unfortunately, it's a repeated speed tier at 45, which makes him a little hard to use. But he's also a regular grass type, so he's another option for our our water grass fire core that hopefully would be able to do some work in unique situations. And you know, why leave 2 points on the table when he's right here? Plus he's got defog. So now we've got defog and we've got our rapid spin, and you know, I think that's a good final pick to wrap up the draft. He doesn't provide a lot to us type wise, but he also doesn't hurt a lot to us type wise. And all that said, let me know what you guys think of the draft below. I always never really know how to wrap these up. I hope the team looks good. I hope you're here to support the Pigknights for Season 4 of the BBR. And I appreciate everybody for watching. Make sure to check out the league above and all of the coaches below. And I'll catch you guys back here next week for Week 1. Peace!